bring you geek news from across the Nostalgiverse. They are Jacob's Toys and SuperSorrell. So strap yourselves in for the weekly live show that brings you toy news, TV and movie reviews, special guests, opinions, tangents, and bad impressions. Reveals, releases, thoughts, and maybe dreams. So prepare yourselves for the Geek Week in Review. Live.
What's up? Hello. Wait, hang on a sec. Hello. All right.
I'm not so super sorrel. I'll be filling in this week.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Hello, welcome back. It's Geek Week, episode 168 with me, Jacob's Toys, and the wonderful one and only Ryan Speaks Geek. Obviously, Mr. SuperSorrell is out in Florida this week, so he's going to try to tune in, but I don't think we're going to be hearing from him because he's knee deep in Universal Studios. So, you know, who can blame him? Who can blame him? But if you're a regular viewer of the show, you will recognize Mr. Ryan Speaks Geek from back in the day, because we're now on episode 168.
Oh no, I didn't realize until you just said that. I was like, holy,
it's
mother
crazy.
God,
It is crazy. My beard has gone from black to grey since filming this show. But yes, we are here. This week we're going to talk a little bit about retro toys and play sets, because of course we all know that Ryan loves a retro toy. So we thought, what better than to make our subject matter of this week retro toys. But yeah, how are you? How's things going on with you?
Yeah, not too bad. I've been taking a little break from YouTube of late, and I've not been doing much. But yeah, it's sort of ticking along nicely. Just been keeping myself to myself, really. Anyone who's in the chat is actually like subscribed to my channel for some mysterious reason. They'll know that I haven't posted anything for about a month. Just been really busy with work and the outside world. But you know, the thing is, it's nice to be a guest. Although I'm already disappointing people, because Jacob Oliver has already been like, you know, get SuperSorrell, wear SuperSorrell. You know, just clearly, you know, I'm just not super enough. I'm sorry, I'm lacking.
No. So clearly, no. So we obviously we go out every week, Mr. SuperSorrell and I, and we talk about the stuff that's gone on in a week. If you're new to the show, then that's great. Do join in with the chat. We go out across a handful of different platforms and whatnot. So jump in with the chat, and we'll try our best to get comments up on the screen and kind of involve them in the conversation. And if you're watching us on Catch Up on any of the channels, then use the hashtag #CatchUpCrew. I haven't got Sorrel here to say it for me, but yes, #CatchUpCrew, hashtag #CatchUpCrew as the hashtag, and then we can find it, and we can obviously get back to you on comments and stuff. But yeah, what's been going on this week for you? Have you, well, it's not even a week for you. What's been going on in the last year since you left the show? It's what's you've been picking up.
Well, clearly my hair grew back, and then it went again. Then it came back again, and then it went again. So back to square one with that, obviously. No, not a great deal. I've been checking out a lot of the retro showings at Odeon. I think I've been to the Odeon, like the cinema, more to see older films. Than I have actually anything new, other than Deadpool and Wolverine, because I have still got that, still using that on a regular basis. But yeah, I tell you what, I did see at the Odeon the other day, which you'll appreciate. Batman Mask of the Phantasm.
Oh, they had that at the cinema, did they?
They've been doing this Batman thing, and actually tonight, we're lucky we're really good friends, because tonight is actually Batman and Robin at the Odeon, and I haven't gone to see it to do this.
Wow.
So that's how much I value our friendship, and you know I love me some Batman and Robin.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
So
I
you know,
have you watched that show King of Collectables on Netflix?
No.
Mate, you got to get on it. Recommendation for anyone in watching the show. There's a TV show on Netflix called King of Collectables, and basically it follows one of these auction house places where they obviously get things graded and sell them for higher prices and stuff. But it follows the kind of really big spenders. And the first season's very much about your sports cards and stuff like that. But the second season is very much about pop culture and Comic Cons and Marvel trading cards and all that kind of stuff. it's really, really cool. And they really dove deep into the kind of pop culture side for series 2. So they go to New York Comic Con, and there's a whole kind of backstory about kind of Pokemon cards and Marvel cards and that kind of stuff. But one of the people that they go and visit, so they go and visit people that have got things that they want to sell or they want to put up for auction. And one of the people that they visit has the original Clooney suit from Batman and Robin with the nipples and everything. Yeah, and he's just got it, just stood there in his house, and he's putting it up for auction. I can't remember what they valued it at, but something ridiculous. But
really,
it's mad, absolutely mad. But they talk about the whole bat nipple thing in this particular show, and the guy who designed it was trying to make it realistic to the comics because of it being like kind of spandex and so show everything. And
I remember, Bat Nips issue number 6. Yeah. That's probably
that famous one. That famous
on the best timing ever. Dave Nipples has just said hello.
best ones, but obviously that's more transforming nipple. But yeah,
that is. It's Rekgar. Barbie Grana with Ninny Bomb.
That's it. Yeah, I haven't been to the cinema actually. I want to go and see Beetlejuice. That's on my list to go and see. Supposedly, is absolutely
loose, baby.
It is a roller coaster ride of a movie, supposedly, but very good. I really want to go and see that. I think I'm going to go and see that with my missus because she's keen to see it. And I know you guys go to the cinema quite often, but we don't. That's not a thing that we do together. And so Beetlejuice is like, oh, let's go and see Beetlejuice. Obviously, I went to cinema last to see something that I can't tell you much about, but it was Transformers 1. Went and saw the advanced screening of that.
So jealous.
A couple of months. It was back in like July as well that I went to see that.
I really want to see that. That comes out when I'm away, I think.
That's it. But the reason I bring that up is because when I went to see that, it was at a different cinema than the one I usually go to, and they had the baby pool.
The popcorn bucket thing.
Yeah, are they popcorn bucket or whatever it is? But they had and they were 40 quid, and I was looking at them as I was going into the show, and I was like, oh, they're really cool, but they are 40 quid. And my son kind of talked me out of getting it. He was like, no, we're not going to get it. And then I came out and they were all gone. And then I looked online and they were selling for like 100 quid, 150 quid. And I was like, this is insane. Like,
I know.
I just wanted it for myself. But
yeah, it's about time though. Because I mean, like, in America, you guys get like the most amazing popcorn buckets. Like when Rise of the Beast came out, you had like an Optimus Prime truck, which was like the whole thing. They've had like the Ecto thing for Frozen Empire. You know, you guys have had so many good ones. And then here, normally what we get is an embossed metal tin. And that's about as much as we get. And then recently, you know, and I've not understood why, because the odious revenue, cinema's struggling. It was like, well, people go in and spend like 20, 40 quid on that. I mean, I spent 20 quid on this.
wow.
Just because I think I was just more excited that we actually had something like that for a change.
Yeah, I was tempted, but it was a midnight show, and obviously I saw you there, didn't I? But it was a midnight showing, and I was kind of like, I don't want to go dripping in merch and have everything, so I opted for the metal popcorn tin. Just I thought it looked quite nice. But then I was a bit disappointed because when I came out, I realized that there was like 3 designs, and I was like, oh man. I was like, I didn't even get the design that I hoped I would get, but yeah,
I've got the Guardians of the Galaxy tin actually to hand. This was quite a cool one.
I've got that one. Yeah, my thing stopped working though. Oh no, so yours still works. Mine stopped working. I put it in the garage. I think I must have left it on, and it just ran the batteries down.
Mid condition, never been used. Didn't even have popcorn in it. I think when I bought it, I think I just got like that.
Yeah.
Ryan should have got a SuperSorrell mask. I don't know if that would be a little bit weird.
That would be a little bit weird. That would be a little bit
creepy. It'd be a little bit Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah.
And just come on, like wearing like a SuperSorrell mask and to be like, you know, hello, Jacob's Toys.
I hope we're talking about a mask and not actually just SuperSorrell's face. You know.
Hey, it's whatever you want it to be. That's the main thing.
Andy Roberts said we went to see Beetlejuice yesterday. Amazing. So there we go, Andy. That's enough of a recommendation for me.
Now there's a name I've not heard since before I was on here last.
All right, question for you. We're gonna dive into retro toys in a bit, but
Go for it.
as you've done Star Wars reference, we've not had a proper chat about Acolyte.
Yes.
Yay or nay?
Yay. I really
Okay,
liked it.
cool.
I
Cool.
couldn't quite get my head around the hate of it. I
Mm-hmm.
think the thing is, I didn't mind when people were moaning about writing. Like, I
Yeah.
get that. But then, having just recently rewatched most of the Star Wars films in the cinema again, and the fact that I watch them so regularly, George Lucas wasn't exactly the king of dialogue. And, you know, you want to talk about things that are a bit taboo. Luke made out with his sister. But, you know, like, I had a good time. I just went in there and just watched it normally. You know, I think that's the thing. I watched it without any expectations. And I was just like, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, that's not so cool. But I think there's something in every Star Wars film or series that's not cool or cool.
Yeah.
I just don't get that. The problem is, right, with the internet, this is going to be like maybe this is very much like, oh yeah, I was born in 1990. I'll tell you what the problem with the internet is. But it doesn't take much for people to go too far. It's all right to not like something, but people became so unpleasant about it and still do. And like the Disney Star Wars hate, like it's fine to not like new Star Wars, but the level of hate is just, and like the rudeness and the personalness of it all is just like, it's insane. I just don't,
Yeah.
I don't understand why you would want to be that unpleasant to someone you don't know,
No.
or about something like, you know, because it's not like, it's not got rid of those films, that those things you love.
No.
If they had said, we're removing Star Wars from all streaming, destroying all the physical copies, and this is your only Star Wars, fine. Yep, I would get it. But it's not, it's all still there. And you can just watch what you want to watch, not watch what you don't want to watch.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
no one's forcing anyone to do anything. And it's not. And then there was that whole thing about like, oh, it doesn't make Anakin's not special anymore because of this whole Force thing. It's like, possibly, but then like, if he's special to you, then surely that's the thing that makes it. And also, like, he was meant to be the chosen one, and there's, you know, how many different ways can you know, like, interpret whether actually he did bring balance to the Force, or was it like, you know, it's just, everything's always up for interpretation. But this just got out of hand, and I kind of want, I'm looking forward to seeing how time will treat it, because I remember being one of the very few people that really liked the prequels when they came out. I mean, I kind of feel like I grew up with the prequels, like, because I was 9 when episode 1 came out, so I felt like I was Anakin. And then it's like, you know, I was a moody teenager who didn't know how to talk to women, like in episode 2 when that came out. And then by episode 3, I'd already murdered loads of younglings, and I just felt that connection. Like, you know, I was just walking around, just tripping over like copious amounts of younglings, and I was just like, well, you know, this is me. You know, I can relate to this, and I had long hair at that time as well. But so, you know, and people hate that, and now people have them with such reverence, and they go back and go like, oh, there's only 6 Star Wars films. You know, it's interesting. I mean, it's interesting, like what like random Rick review says there, like, too bad we never got any more Star Wars movies after Jedi. Like, that's fine, because like, if that's how you want to watch Star Wars, is just 3 films, all power to you. You know, that's awesome. You know, that's your Star Wars. You love it. That's what you watch. Go for it, man. Like, absolutely, full support to you. But also then don't come into my house, Kimasabi, and act like, you know, I can't like what I want to like, because I'm not liking people murdering people in real life. That would be a problem. I'm liking a TV show, and it's like, I don't really care. If you...
I am. I'm exactly the same. Yeah, I just like Star Wars.
That's what I want to see.
I like space swords and robots. Like, it's kind of like
weird aliens.
You know, I some of it I think is incredible. Some of it I think is trash, but it's just yeah. If it's the same with Marvel. Like, if it's got Marvel, it's got Star Wars attached to it, I'm like, yeah, it's cool. This could be good. And if I get to the end of that journey and I kind of go, yeah, that really weren't for me, you know what? I don't watch it again. That's all it is. I don't watch it again. Whereas if it's something I go, yeah, that was really cool. That is who I am now. I'll probably watch it again. But I just don't understand the hate. I mean, I like the Acolyte. I I liked the choreography in it. I thought the fight choreography was fantastic. I liked the design of like the stranger. I quite liked the kind of the roughness around the edges and stuff like that. There were certain scenes that I really liked, like when the kyber crystal bled and it went from like blue to
yeah,
red.
that was
I thought
cool.
that was fantastic. You know, there were bits I didn't like. I didn't like the fact that he walked out of the scene naked and just stood there naked in front of her. I'm not going to go on the internet and complain about it. It is what it is.
Stranger
I
danger.
think it's a shame. I think it's
Sorry.
a shame. It's what?
Stranger danger.
Yeah, there you go. I just think it's a shame it got cancelled. I think it's a shame it got cancelled, but there we go.
I would like at least maybe have had if they said like we're not going to do another series, but we're just going to do like a feature length hour special to wrap things up. Maybe I kind of hate this is the only thing I don't like about cliffhangers in TV shows on properties I like, because if they get cancelled, there's no resolution.
Yeah.
So I don't like that there was no resolution to it. Like that bothers me. And that's one thing I don't like about when we do TV shows now is that the cliffhanger is so expectant on there being a second season. And I think the whole cancellation of things now is not even down to whether people like it or not, whether it makes money. Sometimes it's weird things like tax reasons. I mean, the whole Batgirl movie got completely scrubbed for a tax write-off. Like,
yeah,
there's some weird things that go on in the entertainment industry. So I just think it's unfair to fans to do these cliffhangers now.
Yep.
I think you're much better off releasing a teaser when you've got like doing a teaser scene, like releasing maybe that cliffhanger as like a teaser for a second series when it's been announced. I think that would be a better way of doing it.
Cliffhangers for me, they're so overdone. And yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I think they're so overdone and so expected that everything seems to throw a cliffhanger in there or a link, a tedious link to something else. And when things do inevitably get cancelled, you're then left with that open-ended story, and that is rubbish. That is something I'll complain about. So the fact that we are not going to get a second series of this, regardless of the reason and regardless of whatever people made of it, it does frustrate me that we're not going to get a second series and we're not going to see where that story led because of the teasers. And that's not just in this particular show, that's just across all properties. I think that it's back in the day, and this makes me sound like an old fart, but back in the day, a post-credit scene or a teaser for something else was really few and far between. So if we saw one, we got really excited about the prospect of what could come next. Whereas now it's an expectation of what's coming next or what the second series or what the sequel and that kind of stuff. And I think that the switch between expectation and kind of the open-ended side of it does kind of that's been replaced. Definitely Beth. Oh my god, was that Coca-Cola? Yes, we're not endorsed by Coca-Cola, but Ryan,
that would be crazy to be sponsored by the refreshing taste of Coke Zero, all the flavor of Coke but without the sugar.
Joey1 said the art of open-ended ish has been replaced with a cliffhanger. Very, very true.
I've got to go back. There's a comment up there that said, "Did anyone like Thundercats Raw?"
Here we go.
I think
Dave Nichols. Did anyone like Thundercats?
That's a really interesting one because, like, there we go. Here's a good example. I really didn't like Thundercats Raw. I didn't enjoy it. I don't think it landed, but I also don't think I was the target audience at all for it.
No.
I think the idea was to try and make a Teen Titans Go type Thundercats thing. They experimented. I don't feel like it worked, but there's probably some people that absolutely love it. And the guy that only lasted the one season, or did he get a whole season? I can't even remember.
I just didn't even give it the chance.
It was a weird choice to go that way, but I could see that Teen Titans Go was popular, and I think they wanted to do that with another property, and they thought like, Thundercats, because it was kind of ridiculous as a concept anyway when you really break it down. Talking cat people that are walking around naked, then put a leotard on, and one guy just goes around going snarf snarf. Like it sounds nuts. Actually, it sounds like someone on crack came up with it. So they probably were like, yeah, that suits itself to being a weird, wacky comedy. I could see the logic, but it wasn't for me. But I'm not going to go on the internet and threaten to burn someone's house down because they like it. That's the big difference.
That is a big difference. Very quickly, where did I see it as well? Jacob Oliver. Nice name, Jacob. Jacob Oliver said, "Show us your favorites." Jacob Toys, show us your favorite Star Wars figure. I haven't actually got one because I don't own that many Star Wars figures anymore. I kind of got rid of them all. Ryan's got a few. Ryan's got a few. Yeah, Star Wars for me, I liked Star Wars, and I had a big Star Wars collection at a time. And then I kind of just it was more a case of I need to streamline what I'm going for. But yeah, so I got rid of it. I got rid of my Star Wars. Dave Nipples followed up your comment. Teen Titans
is great. Thundercats roar.
Are we both reading?
Yeah. I was just mocking the way you said Teen Titans Go, to be honest.
I couldn't get it out. But training off of that, a live action Thundercats. Now that's something I think that we are well overdue with. I really do. I think that a live action
trailer, man. Do you remember it? That fake trailer with Vin Diesel as like they used scenes from like Pitch Black, Troy, few different films, and they made them all like that. I think Hugh Jackman's Wolverine was Tigra.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was very well done. And it did make you go, because at one point it was on IMDb for a long time, and the only cast member was Jonah Hill as Snarf.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was on like IMDb for years. I don't know if someone did it as a joke and just no one picked up on it. But live action Thundercats was like the only cast member. It was like Jonah Hill Snarf, rumored.
It's just like the ultimate diss, like a really passively aggressive diss at Jonah Hill. I would really like to see a Thundercats, and but what does worry me is that there is, and this kind of leads on to our retro talk, is that there are certain properties that we love for what they are and what they were, that I wouldn't want them to be carried over to now and just not land, and just then kind of be and
lost in translation a little bit.
Yeah, I just think that like He-Man and Thundercats, they were what they were, and I love them, but I wouldn't want them to bring out a new live action. I know they're doing a live action He-Man, but I wouldn't want them to bring one out and then in modern days they
concepts, isn't it? You know, as well, like because it is time translation as well.
Yeah,
because things like, so for a good example of that is Thunderbirds. Thunderbirds, you think about it, was a black and white, Jerry Anderson masterpiece.
Yeah.
Then it was color. Then my dad grew up loving Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet, Joe 90, Stingray. Mm-hmm. Then it got re-released in the 90s, and that was just straight re-release of the original Super Mario Nation stuff. It was huge. I had all the toys that Matchbox did stuff. The Tracy Island, the Blue Peter Tracy Island is legendary. Then it went away for a bit, and then Captain Scarlet and Thunderbirds came back as like a new modern CGI thing, and it was huge again.
Mm-hmm.
But because at their core concepts, they're very basic things. Mm-hmm. Bad guy, natural disasters. Good guys go save the day with big vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
There's not too much to really update. Maybe get rid of some of the racially insensitive puppetry, but just and maybe don't go down the team
racism, homophobic comments, like anything like that. Yep, scrap them. But the concept,
but that's the thing. The core concept is timeless. Heroes save the day from natural disasters and bad guys.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas then you've got something like He-Man, for example. Where's that more just it was a bigger thing for us because we were in a different age? Because even that latest one, the Kevin Smith cartoon one, was it Revelations? They've tried to bring the techno and almost internet type age into that. I haven't seen season 2 of it yet, but the end of season 1, if I remember correctly, it ended with like technological thing taking over and very internet-y type cyber stuff. Which was slightly reminiscent of when they tried to reboot He-Man into that in the 90s, I think, wasn't it? And it didn't really land.
But you know what? That Kevin Smith version, I think, worked. and
I
it
liked
didn't
it.
necessarily open it up for a new audience, a huge new audience, but it did give it a bit of a rebirth. And I think if they did something like that with Thundercats and brought it back to the screens, and then kind of went from there to do it, because I think if they do a live action He-Man off the back of this, off the back of the new cartoon being successful, I think it would do relatively well. I think that the difficulty is, and I'll just throw, Joby One said, wasn't He-Man basically a commercial for the toys? Yeah, it was. That's exactly what it was.
Blag.
It was a toy line.
They completely blagged it.
Yep, it was a toy line, and they created a cartoon based on. It's basically an extended advert. Is the way
The
to look
Toys
at
That
it.
Made Us episode, and that is brilliant.
Very, very good one.
On
Yeah.
Netflix. Another recommendation for people.
It
You.
yeah, the Toys That Made Us on Netflix do a very, very good explanation of all this. But basically, they were the first kind of toy line to really have that cartoon that kind of was associated with the toy line, but it went the other way around. The cartoon came as a product of the toy, as opposed to now where you get the toys that are the product of the media, the movie or the film, the movie or the cartoon. I think the problem is that you look back at cartoons like Thundercats and like He-Man, the writing wasn't great. Like, it wasn't great. It was very basic, and it was very kind of like you say, this add this equals this, message at the end, happy days, you know.
The more you know.
Exactly. But nowadays, there is such a vast pool of writing and very cleverly written films and very cleverly written series. And there are more TV shows. And because of things like the internet with streaming services and things like YouTube and stuff, there is more television available, whether it's fan made, whether it's low production, whether it's high production. There is so much storytelling out there that back in the day when these things were the kind of the only ones up there, I don't think the writing of its time would hold a torch on the writing of today. And because of that, it would be very difficult to bring those things into the modern age.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Plus, also, like, the toys were a way of continuing the story that you used to watch, because you would only get the chance to watch it once a day or Saturday mornings for those 30 minutes. And unless you had it on VHS, you had to wait till it was on again. So, and you know, you could play Sega Mega Drive for like a little bit, but or SNES, whatever, or your Commodore. But your options were either play outside, or during the day that was adult TV. You didn't want to watch that, so you played with your toys. That was like you were making your own episodes and stories. Whereas I don't think kids play the same way that we would play, naturally, because times have moved on. But I don't think kids play with toys the same way we would play them. They start off when you're like toddler age and everything up maybe to about like 7 or 8. And then after that, I think kids now play with things very differently than what we did, because of, like you said, like, which is a really good point. Like, there is just so much storytelling. You're only ever a few clicks away from content. You know, the minute a kid finishes watching something on TV, the parents go, well, I need to watch this now, and they just get a tablet and then they just do this, you know. And when you were out, you know, you were dragged out by your parents to go to a big family thing. Now people just put a tablet or an iPhone in front of their kids and be like, you know, they can watch it because we have the internet, which is great. But we had to take 1 or 2 figures with us, and we had to make up a battle that was in the middle of a Pizza Hut. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's very different.
Whether they'll enjoy it or not when they're older, but that's what my kids do. We don't say electronics. They can fill a bag with toys, and we go.
I
out
had no doubt that is exactly how. I
He's
know
got
you,
the
man.
Paw Patrol, My Little Pony, like, you know, Super Mario and Batman crossover going on in a pub garden. Like, it's all
and
good.
that's just Jake. You know, you should see what his kids bring as well.
That's just me. Yeah, that is just me with what's in my pocket. But no, I massively agree. I massively agree. So let's talk retro. Let's talk retro toys and playsets. I think He-Man's the obvious one. Let's go on to that because we're talking about that as it is.
He-Man's a good one to start with because of the recent Mattel playset thing that's happened, which I think is really interesting. The fan vote for Snake Mountain, I think it's called.
Yeah, Skeletors.
No, like it was for the Snake Men. No, not Eternia, because they did Eternia as a crowdfunding, and then they put out a vote for what the next playset should be, and it was like a think there was like 4 or 5 options, and people chose because they've been really focusing on like the Cobra snake people in He-Man. I don't know He-Man as well as other toy properties, by the way, so apologies if that I'm butchering this. But they've been really focusing on this thing. I think it might have even been originated from the comics, or maybe only a couple of episodes of He-Man. And it's all like the Snake Men, and there's like Snake Warriors. Yeah. So they wanted to make like a play set for that. That's what the fan vote was, and that won the fan vote. So, because I think the other thing was like, you know, the Doom Zone, like the Fright Zone, sorry, like a redo update of that and stuff.
Yeah.
But the Snake won, like the Reptile Mountain or whatever won, and the concept designs for it were like as if it was going to be like Grey Castle, because it like, you know, Grey Castle, you know what I mean. But it looked like it was going to be like a carrier play set, you know, like one that sort of folds in half and then you can carry it. And then when they showed it actually at the prototype was before they were going to launch, just before they were going to launch the crowdfunding, it was this massive, huge thing which had like a vehicle. It looked amazing in my opinion, but it was a chunk of change and it was massive, and it was nothing like I think what people were expecting. And I will give this to Mattel. One, it's a shame this thing's never going to happen again. And by the way, check out Pixel Dan does a very in-depth look at the voting system and then talking about like why it didn't work, and because he's got quite a close relationship with Mattel, and it's very interesting to watch. So Pixel Dan, good one to watch. But the interesting thing is Mattel listened to fan feedback. They didn't just push ahead with the crowdfunding. They just said, right, okay, we won't make that. We'll go back to the drawing board and we'll review it. We'll see what we're going to do, whether we do something else or redesign this. Because I think people wanted more like a 60 to 100 quid, maybe like one that folded up like in the original design, like Castle Grayskull.
I'm looking at it now.
Can you get the pictures up? Can we?
I
can't
show
the people at home.
I can't share it. I'm trying to figure out how to do it. But there's a video on
Snake
Mattel
Layer. Thank you.
Beth. Yeah. And at San Diego Comic-Con, they had one on hand, and it is a big folding out. It's like a Castle Grayskull-esque looking thing. It's really cool looking, and it's very retro looking as well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it looks good, but it is massive inside. I just want to jump on like Phoenix Richardson just put like quite an interesting comment. I disagree. The writing was fantastic and it was perfect for the time. YouTube and podcasts always seem to view things by today's standards, forget what it was like to be a kid back in the day. You're not wrong at all. Because what I'm saying that the writing isn't good, I'm not dissing the writing.
Hang on. We are going to get back to this comment. We've got incoming.
Oh, you got the...
Look who it is!
Oh, God. That guy. I know someone's going to be happy.
What are you doing, Sorrell? He can't hear us. He can't hear us. He's literally just tuned in to prove that he is on his holidays. Look at him.
Just saying hi.
Just
saying hi.
You can't hear us.
I heard the thing you said. I got headphones in. I'm in the middle of Universal. I'm waiting for Halloween Horror Nights to start.
Nice. He can't hear us. He can't hear us. He can't. It's good to see you.
Have a good time.
There you go. He's gone. He's gone.
But yeah, Phoenix Richardson. Yeah, so as I was saying, like I don't disagree with you. The writing was fantastic as a kid, absolutely. But we are talking about, you are quite right. We are talking about things from like today's standards.
Yeah.
Not entirely. But then it's like looking at some of the Scooby-Doo original like writing is, yeah, you're right. At the time, it was fantastic. And as a kid, absolutely loved it. You're right. They said all the right things. We wanted corny lines. We wanted him to declare like, you know, I have the power. We want to be, you know, absolutely agree. So yeah, apologies if it comes across like that. We're not bashing the original stuff at all. We still watch the original stuff. Me and my wife watch Thundercats in bed on Sunday mornings. So
yeah. To jump in on this, we're not viewing this by today's standards. What we're saying is that wouldn't hold up to today's standards. But that doesn't mean that back in the day it wasn't the best thing ever. Hence why we are fans of things like He-Man and Thundercats and stuff like that. We are fans of them because of what they are. What the point that I was trying to articulate was that if you took that now and showed that to a bunch of children who were the target age for it, it wouldn't hold their attention by today's standards. because it's not the same. Yes, there are a couple of things that you can. There'll be the odd episode or something that might hold their attention, or they'd be excited about stuff. But back in the day, we would sit there and we would wait for the next episode, or we would watch the next. Like it was. So I just think that things do age, things do date. That doesn't mean that they're not great. It just means that they would have a harder time to connect with today's audience, and that's
West Batman.
kind of bottom. It's what
Adam West Batman.
Prime example.
I watch that all the time, but I know that a lot of people, because my dad used to watch it all the time, so I watched it and absolutely loved it. Same as original Star Trek. But if I show that to like my nephew, for example, I other than it's got bright colors, I think that's about where his interest loses after about like, because the other thing is we used to have the patience, because the attention span of kids now is not what we had growing up. So which I find quite interesting, because like, do you know one of the things that highlighted that to me was Thomas the Tank Engine. It's no secret, I'm a big Thomas Tank Engine fan. I still collect the Ertl engines from the 90s. Hello, Thomas, said James as he ran over the fat controller. Just Ringo Starr coming in. It's good. The Beatles couldn't get this gig, but I did.
I'll tell you, it's the opening. That opening couple of bells. It just hits. It hits me right in the nostalgia. Yeah,
it's like Get Little John in the new version.
The simplicity of that.
It was actually, if I remember correctly, it's written by a jazz musician, which is why it's so sort of when you think about it. But like those episodes, when I was a kid, I thought they were really long, and I watched. They're all on YouTube now, and the original ones are like 5 minutes long, and like 3 minutes of that is scenery, like going through scenery. And the funny thing is, but my nephew has no interest in that whatsoever, despite how beautiful the miniature work is and how good those episodes are. But the CGI ones, where it's like, it's Thomas and friends, and Thomas is a spaceship now for some reason. He's like
more than one expression.
Yeah. The fat control is not fat for legal reasons. Da, 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 da.
We're not allowed to say he's fat. He's just slightly bigger than everyone else, but that's okay.
And don't say fat, because that's shaming and you'll be cancelled too.
Right, and
it's Thomas and Diversive Friends.
Exactly why today's it is different. It is different.
Joby one, you are correct. George Carlin was on Thomas Tank Engine, but in America, because in America it was different. It was also, I believe, for a while it was actually called Shining Time Station, I think, or something originally, and then it became Thomas Tank Engine after a while. But George Carlin was actually the voiceover of it, a bit like how
Time Station.
Yeah, look it up. It's probably worth a Google.
What? It's Thomas the Tank Engine.
No, it was about I think they had like some live action other things cut in with it, if I remember correctly. I went down a bit of a rabbit hole. As you do when you're on the internet, and well, I say when you're on the internet, like as if like I'm just sitting around, basically like every other normal human being. When I'm on the loo and I'm just sitting there, and I go down the Wikipedia rabbit hole, and next thing I'm like, I was meant to be having like a poo, like, and then 45 minutes later, Caroline thinks I'm dead. She's called an ambulance, and I'm sitting there looking up the fact that, do you know Thomas Tank Engine had a different name in America?
You know what though? It's funny you say about like Ringo Starr and that being the voice, because I never knew of him. I didn't know him as a Beatle. Like when I watched the show, it was just that guy with a funny voice that does Thomas the Tank Engine. Like it was just that was the Thomas the Tank Engine like voice. Do you know what I mean? And then obviously as time went on and found out that it was a member of the Beatles and stuff, it's
Oh dear, Henry's been blocked up forever. That's unlucky. If only he could imagine being free.
That's it.
I was in the Beatles, and now I'm a train. Take that, John Lennon.
Thomas' voice for me, like that's, and it wasn't an association with the Beatles. It was when I was older and found out, I was like, okay, cool. So Thomas Tank Engine is in a band. No.
I would love to now just think of different voice, like people they could have done. Like now, I'm just thinking of all the different pieces. Like you could do with different actors coming. Like Moss would be a good one to do now. Richard Ayoade would be a good one, and then like Sly Stallone, that would be a funny one to listen to. I mean, it'd have to have subtitles, but it'd be really funny to watch.
Yeah.
you imagine now? It's
Did
just like
you-
coming in and be like, "Hey, no, you go to the station." I said, "Hey, here's the station. Hey, Gordon, that's my coaches." I was, all right.
Did you have any of the Thomas figures?
All of them. I still collect them. The
I've got a
Ertl
few.
ones.
Do you know? I came across a talk with retro toys, really beautiful thing. So I was a big Thomas fan as a kid, like as a little kid.
Mm.
That was Thomas was my boy, you know. No, but I had all the what are the big trains that the little model trains that they're like metal
Well,
and
they're Ertl. They were Ertl's die-cast trains
yeah,
with the
so
molded
they were the
faces.
ones. Yeah, they were the ones I had, and then basically, long story short, I got a box from my late father and all the rest of it. And in the box is a handful of my trains from when I was a kid.
Oh,
And as soon as I picked it up, I was boom, straight back there. It was really, really, really odd to kind of have this toy and be instantly back in this other kind of it was really weird. I've never experienced it, if anything, and it was kind of like, wow, this is like really a real time machine here. I've still got
they're
'em,
solid
still
and
got 'em.
heavy as well, because like they're proper
Mm,
die-cast, and like the detail on them is really good. Like as just a die-cast model, they're very impressive.
yeah.
But yeah, I know what you mean. It's the way there is something about holding one, the
Mm,
way that the little plastic wheels sit in, and the buffer. I know what you mean.
yeah,
There is something very transportative, no pun intended, because he's a train, but very transportative about holding one of those
yeah.
Thomas trains.
And I think that's what. So when it comes to retro toys, what do you class as a retro toy? Is it something that's old, or is it something that's from your youth?
Do you know what? I was having this discussion recently with someone, because it's like the word vintage. So when I was a kid, like what we now know as vintage Star Wars was never vintage Star Wars. It was called originals. Like me and my mum would say, like, because you had the new stuff coming out in 95 to 97, that's what we started picking up, and it was just news or originals.
Mm,
And now it's like, the vintage, because they were the original ones and these are the new ones. That was how distinguished it. And like, but I don't remember, like, when my dad gave me some of his Hot Wheels, for example. I don't remember him saying like these are vintage Hot Wheels or retro ones. And like, I don't know, the retro thing's a bit of a, because of the weird explosion of pop culture at the moment. I kind of don't know what counts as retro, because everyone also thinks like all of our houses in the 80s and 90s were like colors like this. And don't get me wrong, the beds were, because this is actually a duvet. But like, actually, most of it was wicker furniture and really odd paisley sofa cushions and browns and creams and a weird obsession with like sunflowers on Tupperware. Like
yep.
it wasn't quite the, like, we weren't all walking around like with boom boxes on our shoulders like Stranger Things mall,
No, no. It was all just a little bit,
swapping cheat codes for the Mega Drive in the school playground was probably about as close as to actual Stranger Things I think I got.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I see, for me, retro is something that is of a different time. That's how I class it now. So whether that's
Mm.
because I wouldn't collect, like, I personally wouldn't be interested in collecting something that was outside of my collection days. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't chase down, unless it was of a particular intellectual property, like, something that, yeah, unless it was something that kind of was linked to something I was collecting. So if I was collecting Star Wars figures, then I'd want to collect ones from before my time. So then I would class that as retro. But at the same token, I would class the Thomas Tank Engine trains as retro, or the He-Man figures as retro, And I think the thing is as well, is a lot of the things that came from our childhood to 13, 15-year-olds now, that's retro. That's really old and done. But if you look at Pokemon cards, like, you think of Pokemon cards as a property, you think of it as a relatively modern thing, but they came out in like the mid-90s.
I know,
So
I was
they
in
are
primary
retro.
school when they came out, because I remember that was a big thing. They got banned at my primary school, and I did
They're,
have my Pokemon card stolen out of my drawer.
they're still getting
At
banned in
school.
schools.
Oh, okay.
It's still a thing. They still get, every couple of years you have the Pokemon ban. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
but yeah, you
British
think about,
Bulldog, because a
yeah,
kid died. Conkers, because someone lost an eye.
Yeah, but you think of Pokemon cards, I wouldn't think of them as a retro property, but they're from the mid-90s, so they are, to a lot of people now, they are from a retro age. Dave Nipples has said that retro is used to describe new things inspired by old things as well as actual old things. Bit confusing. But yeah.
And that's the other thing. So I'm inspired by Dave Nipples' profile picture there. So he's got, which I absolutely love, the Studio Series 86 Retgar as his profile picture. Which, yes, you're allowed to be all very impressed. I picked that up by that very small picture because I've got one over there. I don't have many original Transformers anymore. Like, I have a very select few. I've got weirdly probably more Action Masters than I do normal Transformers, which is odd. But and lots of weird knockoffs from over the years when I was a kid at Holo. But I really like the Studio Series 86 line because they really encapsulate the characters that I grew up with from the cartoon show. And part of me is like, they're not retro design in sort of like in the actual toy itself. They're retro design for the characters in that sense. Like they look like they do in the cartoon. That's the whole point of them, is to look like they did in the show, like the 86 movie and like the G1 TV show. But then you've also now got the Hasbro stuff doing like retro Transformers, which are the original G1 molds in like the colors accurately of the things. So it's like, what counts as retro? And exactly what Bethany said, what toys will now be called later in 50 years is probably a good example of what retro is. I guess retro is relative to who you are, because that was my original point about the Star Wars, is that when I was at a very small little convention with my mate Dave recently, I saw in a box that said vintage Star Wars figures, and the ones, Power of the Force 2 ones from the 90s were in there. And I thought, like, that's not. And then I did think about it. I was like, actually, some of those are like 19, like almost 20, no, almost 30 years old. Yeah. Some of them, because, I mean, a lot of the Power of the Force, I think Power of the Force 2 started in 95.
Yeah.
So they're only 1 year shy from being 30 years old. And I'm like, but when I started collecting Star Wars in the 90s, the figures came out, well, at the very end of the 70s, beginning of the 80s. So they were only like 10 to 12, 13 years old when I started getting them. But that gap is so much bigger now. And I think people kind of forget as well, like how old these really are. Like when I look at Prune Face here, like Prune Face is 1984.
Yeah.
I think that's actually really fucking old.
That's really old. Yeah. That's
no offense to everyone who's born before then.
It's still younger than me. I'm just
yeah.
it's
no, but it's in like for like what do you know what I mean? Like how long that time has actually passed.
The way you need to look at it is that the amount of time from the original 3 Star Wars films to the trilogy films. So imagine the toy lines that came out then, the amount of time between those two compared to the amount of times between the prequel films and now, it is longer between the prequel films and now than it was between the original films and the prequels.
Oh, that's weird. And we're also in a time where Back to the Future 2 is entirely set in the past, and that still disturbs me.
That really messes with my head. Yeah. The Back to the Future, the big we're going to the future film is now all in the past. And they hit the nail on the head with a few things, but I'm still waiting for that 3D Jaws film to come out.
I know. Right. Every time I walk past the cinema, I'm like, where's my 3D animation about to eat me out the top of the screen?
Yeah. So
can't even get a working seat in my Odeon. Bloody hell.
That's it. But I just think that the reason that why I said playsets as well is that because, again, kind of calling back to He-Man, retro playsets, like for me when I was a kid, I loved the playset. Like a playset was what made the toy line. Whether I was able to obtain that playset or whether that was just an absolute pipe dream that I was going to have it, a playset was what made the toys, because it was kind of like, and I'm thinking about He-Man. He-Man had a lot, it had obviously Castle Grayskull, Snake Mountain, the Eternia playset. If you Fright Zone, like there were so many playsets, and the vehicles all did stuff and that. And then Thundercats kind of touched on it with the Thundercat Lair, and then there was a couple of other small playsets here and there that came out as well. And the Turtles in the 90s, the playset was the Tetradrome bomb as well. Like they were good play sets, and they were an extension of the figures that you had, and
Yes.
they made the play all that much better. And I used to find myself, so like with the Turtles one, for example, and the reason I mentioned that is because vividly remember what we must have been moving or got a new fridge or cooker or something, but we had this huge cardboard box, and so I sat my turtle there on top of the cardboard box, cut the holes in it for the pipes and stuff, and then built the rest of the sewer underneath it. And in my mind, it was an incredible piece of work. it was exquisite. You know, in reality, it's probably an absolute pile of, you know, steaming dung.
You were looking at it going, it's just exactly like what I would buy in the toy store.
Yeah,
Like, this is
it
how
was
good
like,
this
I was
is.
like, I need to.
And
get
I've
the guys
hand drawn
round.
these in crayon, so I know it's good.
Yeah, I need to get the toy companies round here for somebody to take this off my hands and mass produce it. But I was kind of like, yeah. So, but for me, it was, this is my play set, these are my figures, and this is the imagination. This is what I'm building off the back of it. And it was just, I just remember it being hours and hours, and you just don't seem to get that now with today's toys. Like, you do get play sets, but they're aimed much more at much younger audiences.
Imaginext is main one for playsets, realistically.
But even Imaginext, like, they have the big playset kind of things, but they're all very similar. You know,
Some of them are the same. The Mr. Freeze one was used for the Penguins Ice Layer, Mr. Freeze, and about 3 other. The reason I know that is because I was looking up. So I use a lot of other brand playsets to make playsets for things. And I think I did send you a picture of my latest one, wasn't it, from the 90s Robin Hood Sherwood Forest playset?
Yeah.
Now I should have put a picture to bring up because I was pretty proud of it, actually.
Yeah.
But I turned that into like an Ewok playset, like an Endor playset, and it worked. And the thing is, the play features from it work in line with the with the with the Ewoks in the films, so that worked out really nice. But you're right, you know, you would use those playsets and you would use other figures in those playsets. So like you would have He-Man fighting the Ninja Turtles inside like the sewer, for example, or like I had the Biker Mice from Mars Stadium.
Wow.
Well, I say I had it. I borrowed it off my neighbor. We used to swap toys quite a lot, like to borrow them off each other, and that was great because the whole back big TV screen, like the baseball screen, would explode. So that to me became like this mini Death Star type thing. So I had this whole play scenario. I don't know why I remember this so vividly, but I used one of the mini rig vehicles, and I would crash it through, but I'd have all the troops on the actual platform. Or like, you know, you would just use anything and everything, or I'd put every place I had together to try and make Autobot City. And it would be like I had Tracy Island, Cloud City from not Cloud City, Cloud Base from Captain Scarlet. I had a lot of the Star Wars ones. I would just put any place that I could put together, and like make little cardboard bridges, like you said, to connect it all, and that would be my Autobot City, which was awesome. And yeah, like Dave said, like, Micro Machines is another good one that unfortunately isn't around as much anymore. But they used to be great for the places. I had that Toolbox City one as well, with the building, like the skyscraper that you would plug in to make it like the big black, blue and red building, and the bridge that kept it sort of rigid.
Yeah, we've still got some Micro Machines, like retro Micro Machines, in our toy boxes that the kids play with it. They absolutely love it. The one for me as well, the one that always comes to mind for me, because it was the mid to late 90s, and this was probably the last playset I ever got as a kid, and it was the Jurassic Park compound. And it was when when did Jurassic Park come out? Was it 94 or 92, 93? I don't know, early 90s. But the toy line obviously came out, and it was nothing. They looked nothing like
93
the film. 93 looked nothing like the film. You had, and I've even gone and bought them, haven't I? I don't even know where I've put them. Oh, they're here, right next to me, right next to me. So
Nedry's the best one.
Yeah, he's the only one I haven't got yet. Only one I haven't got. But they looked nothing like the characters on the film, right? But I would class these now as a retro toy. These to me are a retro toy because they're toys from my childhood. They came out in like 93, 94. But they looked nothing like what they were supposed to look like. They were done on concept art that was, you know, whatever. And I think the Nedry toy originally was done off of concept art of Ian Malcolm. I think that's something along those lines.
Yeah.
But the compound, again, was nothing like the compound that you have that you had in the film, like at all. It was reminiscent of it. So you had
It was
all
the
the
tower
aspects.
bit in the middle,
Yeah,
wasn't it? And then just the wire gate.
yeah, but you had all the aspects of the movie put together in one playset so that you could play certain things. So you had a singular tower from the visitor center, which you could obviously do your T-Rex bit in and have your characters in and stuff. There was some buttons and some lights and stuff. So you could push the buttons. It made all sounds and
Lights and
lights.
sounds, batteries not included.
Exactly. You had, I don't know, let's say 6 pieces of fence that kind of went around that built an enclosure
Compound.
in front of the visitor center, which again was nothing to do with the film. There was not a dinosaur compound with fences linked to the front of that visitor center. And then to top it all off, you had the gate at the front that you could smash through and stuff. So you had the gates, you had the fence, you had the visitor center. So you had all these aspects of the movie that you could kind of create a game with that came together in this playset that had no real place in the Jurassic Park film. But as a kid, you loved it because you were like, "This is
Yeah.
it. This is all of Jurassic Park wrapped up into one for me." And it's only as you look back at it and you kind of pick it apart, you're like, "This is actually rubbish. Like, who commissioned this? Like, this is, you know."
But I guess it's the play value, isn't it? Versus, I mean, because we again a bit like sort of what he was saying earlier. I can't remember. I'm so sorry. I can't remember who made the comment about like what about looking at things with different glasses, effectively. Because I think this sometimes with play sets. Like I look at some of the ones I had when I was a kid, and you're right. You know, when I look at it, it's like we look at it now with about accuracy. But when you're a kid, you don't think about it because you don't even really care if it was in the film or not. You wanted everything that was in the film, but then if they said like, well, this is the, you know, I think one of them was like a dino capturing helicopter, which had like attack missiles on the side or something crazy like that. And you're like, that wasn't in the film, but I want that, you know, because when you're a kid, you were just excited, like you said, you just played. It wasn't about creating the ideal scene because I really like Retro Blasting, so quite a good channel to watch. And I know sometimes he makes a point about saying like, you know, this wasn't in the movie. And like, I get it, but I guess there are different kinds of kids. Some kids want to replicate exactly what they see in the film. To be honest, I was actually more obsessed when I was a kid with making my own stories. So I didn't try and recreate the films. I used to try and make my own adventures. So therefore, I guess the accuracy of things didn't play. And you didn't care about scale either. Like the Millennium Falcon is still one of the best toys ever, the vintage one.
Yeah.
And they just re-released it with slightly different coloring in the 90s, which is the first one I had. But like that's not to scale at all. You only can fit 2 figures, barely fit 2 figures in the cockpit. But like, no one cares. That was like the best thing ever. Like when you're a kid, like I've got the mother flipping Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Almost the same size as the X-wing.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And I think that's the problem nowadays. And it also spills over. So like Joe Brown just said, I just wonder if that makes a playset now. This is relating to a different one of your comments, but we'll come back to it. But I think it is a harder sell now because everybody's expecting so much more from a playset. You look at the figures, like okay, you know, you go back to these Jurassic Park figures. There's what 5 points of articulation. They don't really resemble the characters on the film. But if you wanted to play Jurassic Park, you had to get the Jurassic Park figures. Whereas nowadays, if a movie figure comes out that isn't as, you know, doesn't look like a miniature version of that film character in your pocket, people who complain it and they slam it and they won't buy it. And
it's the wrong trousers.
Yeah, it's and I know it's slightly different because Marvel Legends is aimed a little bit more at kind of the collector market as opposed to the play market, but they kind of sit on that weird line where they kind of aim it at both markets. And it was around the Infinity War End Game time when the Children of Thanos came out, and they were all slightly inaccurate based on concept art as opposed to the way they looked in the movie. And everyone kind of got them, and then everyone complained about them, and then they re-released them more movie accurate. And I remember thinking at the time, I was like, you know, it doesn't matter because I've got that character on my shelf that resembles them enough for me to be content. But yeah, so I think it is a harder sell now because everybody wants more. I don't think that Jurassic Park compound, for example, would pass as a good playset by today's standard. Joey One also said, "You think 3D printing is having an impact?
Yeah.
Folks are making some impressive pieces. I'm having a 6-inch scale cantina bar and alcove done for a really reasonable price." Yeah, I do think it's having an impact, but I think it's a positive impact, if anything.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. I think as well, like now there is a key difference between a display piece and a playset. The
Yeah.
Cantina crowdfund, for example, a lot. I saw a couple people saying, that like, well, it's a boring playset. I'm like, but it's not really a playset. Like it is, but it's sort of, it's more. Let's be honest, it's more a display piece for collectors. It's not so much like, the original one from Kenner had like a bit where you pressed the button and like people came through the door or they fell backwards, or like the little shield generator exploded on the Hoth 90s one. That's
If
a
it's not
playset
got
with,
a trapdoor, it's not a playset.
yeah,
That's
yeah. If it hasn't got a trapdoor,
if it
that
hasn't
should
got a
be like
trapdoor
requirements.
or a breakaway wall, it's not a playset. That's the
Potentially
criteria.
somewhere to drip slime through onto a figure. That's also
Do not get
a
me
good
started
feature of
on
the
slime.
80s and 90s. But like, it's interesting because like when people say about like the Navarro playset, for example, I got some of those the vintage collection ones.
I'm here. I'm coming.
They're cool display pieces, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't call it a playset as much. But I would call it as like a diorama rather than a playset. I think that's the big difference.
The term diorama didn't even exist when I was a kid. Like, as in regards to toys, it wasn't like, oh yeah, this is a diorama and this is a playset.
Yeah, I mean, because we've had Steve Evans on this show when I was on and I've had him on mine, and we've speak to Steve quite a lot. He's from our neck of the woods originally, like Steve Evans at Hasbro, and that's one of the conversations we always have with him. And it's like, when you see a lot of collectors moaning about some lines that come out, and he's like, yeah, but it's about for kids, like the Epic Heroes line in Star Wars, which actually fits weirdly in with the retro figures. So I've got a few of them. They're like 4 inches, and it's like, people go like, we don't need this scale. Why have we got this scale? Blah, blah. You kind of got to remember, like, these are also some of these are meant to be just be like toys for children to play with. Like when I was a kid, I wasn't bothered about scale that much.
Yeah,
to be honest.
Just very quickly, on your note, Shelley, keep your eyes peeled. He's coming back in a little while.
Here he is. No, I'm joking. That would be funny.
No, he is. He's coming back. He's coming back to join us. No, I agree. I completely agree. And like the cantina, for example, the crowdfunding cantina is like what, 400 quid was it for the base one, 500 quid for the deluxe version. I don't care how much my kid likes Star Wars. I wouldn't buy that for them to play with. That's not a toy. That is a collector's piece. That's something aimed at people with serious money that can put that into something for their shelf, which is great. It's fantastic, but it's not aimed for the kids. That is not. There is no kid. There is no you could probably count on one hand the amount of backers that went, oh, that's brilliant. Billy's birthday is coming up. That would be perfect. Boom, buy it. Do you know what I mean? Like that is more people that have a serious collection, a serious kind of hobby of collecting Star Wars of that scale that want it for their display. It's not a play set. And I know we joke, but I think unless it's got some kind of play feature, it's not really a play set. And I think that's probably the way of defining whether it's a play set.
Lights and sounds, trapdoors.
Yep.
Some kind of feature.
Lights and sounds, though, I would say do fall into the diorama kind of part.
They can do sometimes, but it depends what the lights and sounds are.
Yeah, but the reason I say that is
if
because
it's lights, like because it's lampposts or like windows.
Yeah.
Or Jacob Oliver, I'm getting a little bit worried about you. Should I message SuperSorrell to tell him, like, like I kind of feel like, like there's going to be one of those. Do you know what? I've just worked out what's going to happen as well. We're going to be on one of those YouTube channels where it's like, when they started doing the podcast, they couldn't tell what was happened, but now they thought it was an innocent comment, and the next thing you know, like Jacob Oliver's wearing all of us as like some weird 3D suit and just shouting out Ryan's nips and SuperSorrell all over the time and being like, Jacob stole my name, so I stole his face. And then there'll be like interviews with his neighbors, and they'll just be going like, he was such a quiet, normal guy, we didn't know.
John Hood said the original Jabba the Hutt playset included trapdoors. Yes, it did, but they weren't trapdoors, were they? They were like upward trapdoors.
Yeah.
They kind of went up, which really annoyed me as a kid because I was like, it didn't do that in the film. It did this.
Got one right here.
Yeah, they didn't go up. But no, the reason I say about lights and sounds is because I recently got the Ramen Racer, and I know that's not a I know that's
Sorry, I
not
just saw Jacob's comment of yummy, and now I am genuinely thinking like taking some screenshots, just keeping that for some evidence. Climbing in your windows, he's snatching your people up.
But I
Hide
got
your kid,
the
hide your wife.
the Ramen Racer, and I know it's not a playset; it's more of it's a vehicle, but it lights up and it makes sounds, and it's a cool
Sorry,
feature.
what's the
for
Ramen Racer?
the Ghost Rider car.
Oh, sorry, because you said Ramen Racer. I'm thinking like some weird like noodle car.
No, do you remember we were talking about it back in the day? And it was the
Yes,
failed HasLab. Yeah.
yeah.
But that comes with a wow. That comes with a he's got his blaster ready. Yeah, that comes with lights and it comes with sounds and it comes with yeah, all of those features. So I think that certain dioramas do have that as an extension, but I think a play feature is something serious.
Something serious.
Do you mention slime though?
Yes.
So
You know what? You said that as I've just got some sweets out of my toxic waste.
no way. The Ghostbuster house, the Ghostbuster HQ.
Yes.
Yeah. What did you have one?
No, my neighbor did, and we ruined his mum's carpet, and she would never forget. Like she never forgets because basically we did the slime, and it then obviously went all over, and it got. She had like a really thick, like. Sorry, these are just going everywhere now. They just went everywhere, like absolutely everywhere, like the slime, and it went into the carpet, and then it went hard, crusty, and then it started to smell. So my mum and dad were like, "Yeah, you're not having one of those." I was like, "Oh, but mom, I'll play with it outside."
But that is a really good example of a playset because, like look at the Ghostbusters firehouse. It was a firehouse. What they gave us as a playset was not in the same scale, was it? But it was. Oh, hang on. See if I can get a picture of it. Yeah, it wasn't in the same scale. It was. It had the kind of grates on all the floors, and they took up like a big portion of the floor. But the big feature of it was obviously being able to drip slime through the roof of the building and for it to go all the way down right to the bottom. And then you collected the slime up. And if you left it long enough, it all kind of made its way down. You could collect it up and put it back in the tub. But that was a big play feature of it. And then the pole, which obviously was a thing for the Ghostbusters to go down, the only way that they could make it functional was for it to have that big platform on the bottom. And it was more like an old style elevator that went round like a million miles an hour, and whatnot. Bethany Beth said, didn't Terminator toys have slime? Did they have slime?
They had they sort of did. They had the flesh generator.
Yeah, that's
which
what
was
I
the
was
skeleton,
thinking.
and you put that in there. Alien, the Alien Queen set had slime.
Yeah.
Because you would put it in her thing and then it would all come down. I don't know if Terminator had slime, but they definitely had. They had glow in the dark. They had the flesh maker thing, which is where you put him in the mold and then you pushed in like the weird Play-Doh type stuff.
And then it went.
And then you could rip it off the skeleton.
Almost. That can't be safe. I mean, like that's that kind of.
No, but it was awesome.
That was awesome. That was one of the only Terminator toys I didn't have, which was I was really annoyed about.
I've got a RoboCop, like an Orion Toys, like a RoboCop toy, and it's like you freeze your action figures, and it has all these like little tools that you then use to try and melt the ice a bit.
Really?
It's really odd. Like it's really cool. I got it for like not much, and then I was thinking like this could make a good like Boba Fett healing chamber. So it was really bizarre, but I absolutely it was the weirdest thing. But you again those old imaginative play sets because all it is you get all these like big plastic tubes that would fit your figures in, and then you freeze them, and then you take them out and put them inside the like chamber,
Mm.
and then it had all these little like metal rod type tools that plugged into the base, and it actually had a battery in it. And the idea was that you defrosted out your figures, which like now I'm looking at it and going like, this is probably definitely not safe, but like I need to put a battery in it and see if it works. If you don't hear from me for a while, that's probably gone horribly wrong. But like,
I'm just trying to think what other play sets I had. I mean, the main ones for me was the Ghostbuster HQ, the Jurassic Park compound, He-Man, Thundercats, Turtles. They were the main ones, but then other figure lines like things like Mask and stuff, they would all have like the base. Like all the toy lines would kind of have a handful of figures, whether they were cars, vehicles, whatever they were, and then you'd have like a base, like, and that was the big Christmas kind of item, wasn't it? The thing that you would
Power
get.
Ranger Command Center, I had that one.
Oh, see, I didn't have that one.
I'll tell you what I had that was really weird, and it was sort of a vehicle and sort of a base. When I describe it to you, you're going to be like, what are you smoking? But imagine a giant wheeled robotic.
I bet I can top it. Go on.
I don't know. A giant big wheeled Triceratops with a carry handle.
I remember this.
And it had giant purple cannons, bright luminous green wheels, those purple things. And then the head opened up, but it could move. A little trapdoor. It was the most bizarre thing. And I bought it in a Swansea charity shop for like next to nothing, because I always used to do, like, obviously I spent so much of my childhood like in Swansea in Wales. And it turned out I never knew what it was. And I got annoyed because my parents decided that, I would donate it to my cousins at one point. I was like, didn't agree with that. That was my sandcrawler, thank you, in my head. And was really upset about it. But then obviously, even with the internet, trying to just put that in as a description, I've never found it. And then I was looking up Mighty Max, of all things, because I love Mighty Max, as you know. I was looking up something to do with Mighty Max. No, it was when I got that Gambit head, like the Micro Machines type Gambit head. That was weird, I found. And it was from Bluebird Toys. And in the suggested pictures on the bottom,
Who's this thing?
I saw it and I was like, what are you? And I found out it's from a small toy line called the Warriors of Kerrang.
Yes.
A very small toy line, really unusual figures. And it was just something like flooding back like a wave of like, my brain. So I will pick one up again at some point because I really liked it. But yeah, Warriors of Kerrang.
I'm literally looking at it now. I'm literally
see what I mean about a weird playset vehicle type thing. The whole thing opened up; it was massive.
Yeah.
Have I just retro blown your mind?
I remember it. And people, if you Google Warriors of Kerrang, a lot of people are posting help identifying this childhood toy. People trying to find out what it was and where it came from. Oh mate, that is a real blast from the past, that toy line. I don't even know what they were though.
It was a standard Bluebird Toys, like their own property they made up.
They just tried to make a universe.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, Joby One made a good point. The Star Trek play sets they had as well. The Next Generation ones, they were awesome. And it is Star Trek Day, John Hood. You're right.
There we go. So you're talking about the Triceratops one, aren't you? Sorry, I've got to just jump on this. That was called the Hexon Battle Machine.
Rolls off the tongue.
Yeah. It was a 90s thing. Warriors of Kerrang, the Hexon Battle Machine by Bluebird Toys. And it just looks like a sad Triceratops. No,
it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was a mean mofo.
It's very cool. Oh, that's very cool. That is very cool. Yeah, I was just going to say, so yeah, JB1 saying he had the engineering section of the Enterprise. All right, so the one I'm going to top that with as a bizarre playset that I had as a kid was Jelly Babies. Do you remember Jelly Babies? Like the sweet, like the candy Jelly Babies. So for some reason, the local newsagent got this really random toy line in one week, and they just filled a shelf, and it was all the Jelly Babies as like characters, but they were just kind of like soft plastic figures. And I don't even remember what they were called, but you had the green one, the yellow one, all the rest of it. and then you could buy the play sets. So you could buy the furniture set, or you could buy the house. So you could buy both of them, and then the furniture set went into the house.
Oh my
And they
god,
were
I forgot about
inflatable.
these.
Yeah. Yes. There you go.
Yeah,
And the house was inflatable, so you would blow it up and play with it.
that's awesome.
Really, really, really random. Really, really random. But yeah, really, really random. But then I'm even thinking about sort of some other ones. So like Pirates of Darkwater had the playset, which was the ship. The Dino Riders obviously had a command center thing as well, didn't they? There was like a base that you could get.
Dungeons and Dragons had that weird swamp dragon head
Yep.
base.
Yep.
Captain Planet had a toxic slime pit
Yep.
on the top of the slime.
Yep.
I'm trying to think. Transformers had a really weird cardboard one at one point in the 80s. Was it Starbase Command? The Starbase, Starbird.
Yeah.
That had one. Then you have things like Sylvanian Families and stuff like that. And I had a few bits of that I just made part of my Ewok village from Star Wars.
Yeah. But I think that without making it kind of boys and girls, but if you look at girls' toys nowadays, like the more modern kind of girls' toys, play sets are in full swing. There's the houses, the castles, all this kind of stuff that go with the toy lines that are aimed at like.
Oh yeah, my sister's like dream houses and Barbie houses stuff was insane. Like they had pools, jets, submarines, all sorts of random crap. But it was just pink and that. But the what was one of the ones that I was just thinking of that we haven't mentioned that's really obvious? Oh, Batman, the Batcave. They used that same kind of Batcave like 8 times. I think the last time they used the one was originally done for the Keaton Batman film. The last time they used it, I think, was in the late 2000s. Like that's how long they were reusing that mold. Yeah.
Wow. All right. So obviously we're running into the last couple of minutes of the podcast. So to kind of round it off, retro toys, play sets. If you could have a play set to go with any line of figures that you collect now, what would it be and what would it look like?
Oh, that is a big question. Can it be one that already has play sets?
Yeah. Just if you
in that case, I do have a very solid one actually.
Okay.
Unlike a lot of people, I really like my retro Indiana Jones figures, and I know they did the Well of Souls and all that. I want the boulder chase. I want a little boulder chase that would come down, and I want it to have a pit with spikes, and I want it to have a wall that has the skeleton come out the side. I want that, or I want the raid, like the Last Crusade, like Jehovah starts with an I. That whole bit with a little button where he just does that. Whenever I click on that, if I press the J on the floor, it goes Jehovah starts with an I. Like I just want it to be like every time. Like that would be
You'd have
my
to have a little peg
set
on that one so you could stand them on it, so that you could just push the figure.
And you just press it over again, it would go Jehovah starts with an I.
See, for me,
what about you?
It would be one of two things. The retro 3375 line that the Hasbro did for Marvel. They obviously did 8 series or whatever of figures and then just kind of ended it. I'd like a playset for that, whether it be like an Avengers Tower or a X-Men mansion or something, just something where I could display those figures. But the thing is, they crossed over so many different teams. I don't know if they could do a playset that would be good. I don't know. It's hard otherwise. I just maybe something for the Hasbro Dungeons and Dragons figures they did recently.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
Something for that would be quite good. Yeah. Just having a look. We are getting to the end of the show, but if you've got a playset that you wish would be made, do let us know in the comments, because we will get to it even on repeat. One we mentioned last week, me and Sorrell mentioned last week, is we said that some toy company really needs to kind of get behind the idea of making like some kind of tavern playset, just because of all the new, like there's so many like smaller companies that are doing fantasy figures, and there's so many of the bigger companies that have done fantasy figures, that if you had like a tavern playset that you could put these figures in, it really would. It really would. I've got to show you this because this will make you laugh. Do 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 do. Look at that. Look at that.
Both Jehovah's start with an I.
Yeah. I actually got this from
Henry
Comics and
Jones
Cocktails.
Jr.
Comics and Cocktails were giving these away with, I think their original promotion was something like, for every order of, it was like a week promotion, that if you ordered a 6-inch figure, they gave you a free retro figure and you didn't know which one you were getting or whatever. So I got a parcel turn up with Mr. Sean Connery himself, Henry Jones Sr. And I just thought, you know what, out of all the figures that they could have sent, I'm really pleased they've sent that one. So I don't think I'm gonna open him. I'm gonna keep him as he is.
Maybe we'll get some Goonies figures now that the Goonies sequel has now been officially announced.
Oh, the Goonies would be great.
The Goonies figure line with playset, like that would be really cool. And especially like now that the sequel's been just announced officially today.
Has it?
Yeah, have you not seen this? It's actually
No.
I thought this was the Geek Week in review, Jacob. I thought you
Mate,
guys were
I've
hot
not
on
been
the
on the
pulse.
internet today. I've not been on the internet today.
Yep, Goonies is coming back in a pretty good way.
Wow, they're actually going to do it.
Yep.
Amazing.
You maniacs! No, I'm joking. But I'm
Shelley
excited for it.
Shelley said she got Helena Shaw and Mr. Jones Senior free.
Nice.
There we go. So
Nice.
you got. They obviously just had a really big pile of Henry Jones
Sean.
Senior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the Sean pile.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It's great. We're free on every packaging. Every child should have a Sean Connery figure.
So there we go. There we go. Yeah, I'd love to see the rebirth of playsets. I'd love to see playsets get a rebirth, because I really think that it's an aspect of toys that is missing for today's sort of generations. Yeah, I mean they are there, but it just seems that the more playsets I see are ones aimed at people our age for that display purpose, and not for a,
do something cool.
Yeah, we bought our boys the Ghostbuster Duplo, not Duplo, Playmobil.
See,
and they do some great play sets. And so they had the car, they had the base. Look at me. They had the Ecto one. They had the firehouse. They had we got all the bits. And that firehouse is in pieces. Like there are windows missing, there are stairs missing, there are because it has just been played with. And as you said, there are so many different characters that go into it. There's so many different events, and I'll say events because there was a wedding in there the other day. But there's so many different events that happen at this firehouse, and it was part of the reason that kind of spurred me to think of this as a title for the show, because playsets aren't around the way they were. And I think if they were, they wouldn't do too badly, I think.
And going through a catalogue at Christmas when you were a kid, even if it was for a toy line you had nothing to do, like I remember and the ships as well, like Captain Simeon and the something Marauders, I think it was called.
Yeah.
There was a really odd toy line, but I really wanted the ship. I just wanted the spaceship.
Yeah.
I didn't really care about the rest of the figures. I just wanted the spaceship. I didn't get it. Not throwing my toys at the pram, because very blessed to be fairly spoiled as a child, in a good way, not in a spoiled brat way. But I never got that one, and that was one of those ones that sort of escaped me a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. It's a hard one. I don't think they'll come back the way. Unfortunately, I think the majority of playsets now will fall into two categories. They'll be for Imaginext age, Paw Patrol age, that age, and then it goes into adult collectors. But interestingly, here's one of my final questions for you. Where time is moving on, do you think, and I remember you saying before, when you've shown your kids Star Wars, for example, they cared more about it when you showed them the prequels first and then into that, rather than trying to get them to watch like the 70s and 80s ones straight away. So do you think, because like vintage Star Wars figures obviously have a huge commanding price, but will the demand for that and that retro style, for example, by the time we're in our 80s, will that start to disappear? Will that generation, eventually die out? Do
No.
you reckon? Do you reckon it will last forever?
Yeah, because something old is always something old.
True, but there are so many cartoons and shows that were huge back in its day that we could probably, if we Googled, we wouldn't know anything about. I mean, I
Yeah.
had to explain who bloody Michael Parkinson was to people at work the other day, but I was like, it's Parky. Everyone knows who Michael Parkinson in the UK that is, by the way, of a certain age. But like, even with cartoons and stuff, like some of the things I thought everyone knew about, nothing.
Yeah.
So will some of them just eventually fade out into obscurity?
I think some of them will. I think the things that Star Wars will continue.
Ending on a high note.
I think the value of like Star Wars figures, for example, will maintain. I don't think they would ever completely drop to being pointless. I think there will be right times to sell and right times to buy. There always will be with everything, whether it's houses, whether it's toys, But I think the bigger properties like that will stay. I think other properties could potentially just fade out, and once the fan base have kind of gone or forgotten about it, then it will disappear.
What's one playset that you thought was naff?
I thought it
Naff,
was
by the way,
rubbish.
for our American audience, means rubbish. For example, I was really disappointed in the cloud base for Captain Scarlet, the Matchbox one, because effectively it was a giant slab. It didn't really do anything. You could look through a viewfinder and see a scene from the show, and it could store your vehicles in it. But other than that, it was effectively just a giant landing strip on wheels.
There was the dinosaur thing from He-Man that was essentially like a figure case.
Oh, the Walker, yeah, had the
I can't
little.
remember what it's
You put it in
called.
its ribs, didn't you? You put all the figures in it.
Yeah, so the figures all clipped into its ribs, and then the weapons all went in its mouth, and you could carry them along. And the picture on the box basically showed them in his rib cage, like stuck inside him, and it was like this monster. And then you got it out, and it's just a solid piece of plastic that you clip the figures into the side of it. And I had one. I think I might have even had two. I think it was one of them things that was relatively affordable. So like your nan bought it for you for Christmas as
no
well.
one was buying it, and your nan like,
Yeah.
oh, Jake likes He-Man, gets it out of the clearance bin.
And I just remember being really, really excited to have it, and then really, really disappointed because I couldn't involve it in my game as much as some of the others. And bearing in mind, this isn't me being ungrateful, but this was just a solid piece of plastic that figures snapped into the side of. The mouth opened and closed, so you could put the swords and shields in there. But that was competing with other play sets from the same line that came with a full kind of plastic glove puppet that you stuck through a hole and ate your figures and then poured slime over them while they got stuck in a tree. Like, the He-Man play sets were really next level. And then you had the big plastic dinosaur. So that was probably mine. Well, I think I'll probably end up buying one just to have on my shelf now, because now I've slagged it off in public. It's now become a part of my history, and I need to.
Now you'll see Jake walking around with conventions carrying around his figures in that, like around every convention. Just be like, I'm just showing off my figures in my giant plastic rigid dinosaur.
Ryan, it's been wicked having you back here this week, mate. Thank you for joining us.
It's been great fun.
It has been fun. Thank you everyone for joining in and jumping on with the comments. We've tried to get to most of them. We've ignored a few of them, and we will.
We are doing something cool on Saturday though, together.
Are we?
Yeah. Where are we going on Saturday?
Oh, is that this Saturday?
This is Saturday coming up. Have you forgotten?
Yeah, I might be coming. I don't know. I'm supposed to be.
I thought we were doing something cool on Saturday. Ignore that, viewers.
We might do. Yeah.
It's 11 till 1. And we get a discount if the three of us go up on the train together.
Oh, is it? Is that what it is? Is it a discount?
Just want you for the discount, mate.
Okay. I'll talk to you about it. I might be able to make it work. But yeah, no, it has been fun. Do check out the description of the video. All the links there are there to follow us. Obviously, you can check Ryan out on his channels. Ryan Speaks Geek. SuperSorrell will not be back next week. Next week we've got the One Good Scare people. Dang, Ryan just got a good friend zone.
Good friend zone. Oh,
Yeah.
I hate that he remembers that's a thing. Oh, good friend.
No.
I was really happy that I wasn't a good friend Ryan Speaks Geek. I've known Jake for like 15 years, by the way.
I think it's longer than that, mate.
It might be.
I think
this
it's longer
Helen,
than that.
probably.
When you think of the age of my children, I think it's longer than that.
Oh my god, yeah, actually, because
Yeah.
I was around when they were born.
You're around before that.
Oh god.
But yeah, so do check out Ryan's channels. Sorrell won't be back next week because we've got the One Good Scare Boys coming in. He's still on his way back from Florida. So do join in. We're going to be talking about action figures that were aimed at kids that shouldn't have been aimed at kids.
Oh, that's going to be a good episode because there is a lot to cover there.
We've touched on a few tonight, but that's what we're talking about next week. So yeah,
I'll try and send some pictures of terrifying toys from Turkey, where I'm going for 2 weeks, for you guys to enjoy.
Amazing. I've actually got a video coming out with some of the ones from one of my trips a couple of years ago. I've just never done anything with the pictures, and I thought, you know what? Now is time.
It is time.
Thanks everyone for joining in. This was episode 168. I'll be back next week. Ryan will be back at some point during, some point in the future. Until next week, keep it geek.
Keep it geek.
Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and of course subscribe. Tune in next week for another live show. Until then, keep it geek. www.geekweekinreview.co.uk